of your HACCP program for Capstone, and we are going to be talking about Form 5A, and Form 5A will likely take us at least 2 modules. So this is part 1, and just to remind you, we have covered off Form 1, which is going to give some general oversight about the product, Form 2, which is going to cover our incoming ingredients, Form 3 was giving our process flow diagram, Form 4, which you do not have to do, is our facility schematic, and we're now at Form 5, where we are in the process of deciding what are the possible and probable hazards related to our product and identifying ways to manage those hazards, whether we do that through our good manufacturing programs or our good manufacturing practices or our prereq programs in our HACCP system, or whether we use a process control or a CCP. So in Form 5A, it is important to make sure that you are reading through all of these top column questions, because this is what we call a decision-making tree. If you as a child read Do Your Own Adventure books, you may remember this sort of decision-making tree where you, if this is yes, answer this. If this is no, go to column 4 sort of scenario. So in column 1, we are going to be listing our incoming ingredients, any packaging materials, and any potential points of cross-contamination. Now, again, we did not have a Form 4, but Form 4 is one of those exercises of recollection to make sure, one, can you eliminate these points of cross-contamination by just modifying your process flow? We do not need to worry about this because I do not expect you have a Form 4, but in the real world, you would be referring back to your Form 4. We're just going to focus on what we had in Form 2. Ideally, you're going to go and cut and paste this. I've been making banana muffins, and so just off the top of my head, I'm going to recall I had banana puree. Next box down, I had all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, shortening, and so on. You do want to make sure you have all of your different ingredients listed, and if you need more pages, use more pages. It is possible to extend out the number of columns. I'm going to list those many and use that as an example for you. But again, if you have 10 ingredients, you should have 10 ingredients listed here. If you have packaging material, it should be listed here as well. Then the question is, list all of the biological, chemical, and physical hazards associated with each of these ingredients listed in column 1 and each cross-contamination point. And this is where your mind likely just exploded if you have to go through and brainstorm all the possible things that could have happened. Thinking of banana puree and what are possible risks, you could think of tropical spiders, or you could think of monkey poop, or any number of things. You have to ask the question, what is realistic relative to this product? So, just to refer, there is what is called the reference database for hazard identification, and this is a CFIA tool where they have taken literally hundreds and thousands of hours, maybe even millions of hours of observations of hazards that are realistic to the food and the ingredient type that you're working with. And this database has compiled realistic hazards, and it's a great jumping off point for being able to identify hazards relative to the ingredients. And then, as we get to Form 5B, it is also useful for identifying hazards related to processing steps. So, do make sure to read through, but this is where we are going to click on here to get ourselves through. Some places they have a continue button at the bottom, and I think this is one of the pages where this says continue at the bottom. No, it doesn't. It's process product ingredients over here. So, I'm going to click on that, and here's where the continue button is at the bottom. Now, this database is not going to contain every single ingredient. It's going to contain families of ingredients. And that's important to note because if I go hunting for banana puree in the database, so let me click fruits and vegetables. I'm going to click refresh, and that's going to narrow down my categories. This page is a little bit slow and laggy, but it's worth going in and identifying what's there. So if I look for bananas, not finding bananas. But that's okay. What is banana? It's a fruit. So let's go and look for fruit. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Sorry about that. Fruit. Fruit. There we go. Fruit canned, fruit dried, fruit drink, fruit frozen. We could argue it's a frozen puree. We talked about this in a previous class. We could argue it is a canned puree. Canned bananas, not so tasty. Let's go with frozen. So I'm going to click on fruit frozen, and I'm going to scroll down, 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 down. Now you are well within your right to click off everything that you want, but again, I like the fact that you can go through independently and think about the hazards relative to what you're working with. So I'm going to click the Associated Hazards button here at the bottom. And now suddenly we've got a list of associated hazards that are realistic to bananas or any sort of frozen fruit product. I'm going to cut and paste this. So copy. I'm going to go back to my form here. So back to my blank form, list all the possible hazards with my product. So I can cut and paste here. I do recommend doing a plain text, and now it's expanded out so I have more pages here. So I've listed my biological hazards. Now I have to ask for each of these hazards, is it a low, medium, or high risk? And so just to discuss this further, risk, I'm going to show you an image here. Oh no, this is not going to give me the image that I want. Food Safety Risk Assessment Matrix. There we go. Oh, there's a good one. So, it is important to think about what is the real impact of that hazard. So, what is the severity of this hazard? Is it going to kill people? Is it going to cause fatality? Is it going to cause injury? Is it going to be minor of impact? So thinking of it, like if we're talking about Clostridium botulinum or E. coli 157, these 7H7, these can cause fatality. Whereas if you're talking about something like wood pieces in the banana puree, that's going to be minor. So the severity is important to think about, but it's also important to think about how likely it is for this to happen. Is it going to be extremely unlikely, so it doesn't happen very often, or is it going to be very likely? Using the example of chicken, for example, salmonella would be considered a major injury. Salmonella usually doesn't, or a serious injury. So it usually doesn't kill people, but it can incapacitate people for an extended period of time from foodborne illness. And it's very likely that raw chicken has salmonella. And so therefore it would be a medium to high risk rating. Whereas if I'm thinking of wood fragments in bananas, it would be a rare occurrence and a minor injury. So it would be a minimal risk. And this risk profiling is important because it's one where you want to make sure that you're giving the right amount of emphasis to your hazards. So jumping back to my form, Norwalk virus, it's going to make you pretty ill, but it's reasonably unlikely that it's going to happen. So I'm likely going to put it in the low risk profile. We are out of time. I will do